I still have some records that people will like hold up on their phone that they want me to play, and I'm like, I hate that song.
The records everyone wanted more of from J Worra were the ones pulling her away from herself. This is the story of how she found her way back. You're listening to Elevated Frequencies.
Ever wonder how top DJs actually built their careers?
I had to do 15 years of hard work to get any of the recognition that I wanted.
Where I saw a turning point in my career is when I became true to myself.
From marketing and mindset to networking and negotiation, I'm giving you the tools you need to build a lasting career in dance music.
Give them bits of you and your everyday life.
You have to change the way you view the word no. Like me, I'm encouraged by it.
Join me, Olivia Mancuso, and industry leaders as we reveal what it really takes to turn your passion into profit. This is Elevated Frequencies.
Something I've learned building in this industry. The career you want doesn't come from going viral. It comes from professional relationships. And that's exactly what Trackstack was built for. The industry keeps giving artists tools designed for casual listeners, but Trackstack was built for the professionals who invest in each other. Trackstack Pro puts you inside a network of labels, curators, and artists who are genuinely invested in each other's career, where every submission becomes a contact, and every contact is a relationship that can turn into a collaboration, a booking, or a door you didn't even know existed. And those relationships are yours to keep. No algorithm deciding who sees your work, and no platform holding your contacts hostage. Go to trackstack.app and use code ELEVATED for 50% off Pro for 3 months. That's trackstack.app, code ELEVATED. So when you come back to Chicago, the city, to play shows, obviously this is where you, well, maybe it's not, is this where you cut your teeth getting involved in the music scene?
Yeah. I think what's like kind of interesting for me is I grew up, and I don't know if I've ever really talked about this because I don't know if I've had like the platform to do it, but like I grew up in a really small town, 99% white people, 99% gay people, or I'm sorry, straight people,
Yeah.
99% straight people, and then if there were gay people, they were not out.
Right.
And for me, I always knew I was gay, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable here. I don't feel like safe coming out. So I just didn't. And then I went to college and I played soccer, and that kind of like, once I left my hometown. And then, but I was always into music, like all through those chapters, like in my hometown and then in college. And when I was growing up, I was playing instruments and like teaching myself. But I didn't really know that there was a career in this. It's like my parents were blue collar. Like, why would I think that I could do something like that, like music? And then after college, I moved to the city, and that's where I started like coming into my own like skin and being comfortable with myself. And and a lot of that is rooted in going to house shows in the city, and kind of just like that became a safe space. And then I remember, I'm not sure how long you've been in Chicago for.
Well, I've moved out a few times, but
Okay, so do you remember when Spring Awakening first came to the city, and it was at Soldier Field? One of my friends had free tickets to it, and I remember I went, and there were no women on the bill, and I was like, I feel like I could do this, because I always had like, I just always had like the drive to, like be ingrained in music, whether that was instruments or like music, downloading, listening, whatever. So I bought DJ stuff, and then I was teaching myself to DJ. And as I was doing that, I was trying to like cut records up. And one of my friends was like, wait, you need production software. And so that's when I like went and got Ableton, and then I really got embedded in like that side of the scene.
wow. So was it weird to you to be around people like you for the first time when you started going out to clubs? Were you kind of like, oh wait, like I can let my guard down a little bit?
Yeah, it was an interesting process, and I think it was like an added layer of comfort, and then it allowed me to continue to like explore who I was as a person. Because I think when you don't, for so much of your life, you kind of like keep it hidden. It's like this delayed like maturing in a sense. And so like a lot of those friends, they didn't, I think they just like, I didn't even have to tell them. They just knew, and they were just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very akin to just, and I don't know how your parents were, but if you grow up sheltered, right? The moment you get a taste of freedom, it's like overwhelming because you're just, I mean, like for me, having very sheltered immigrant parents, then going to college, it was just like, look at this, you know, and we grew my small town too was 7,000 people. It's like, oh my God, like this is a brand new world.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like your first, I mean, Chicago being your first, you know, first introduction to house music in that world. What better like history lesson and experience can you get? Were you teaching yourself when you got Ableton? Were you teaching yourself like on YouTube University or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's really cool about Chicago is that it's very tight knit. And so once I started learning, I was meeting other people who already had the experience and understanding of like Ableton or different like, you know, DJing or whatever. And those people were so welcoming.
Yeah. Who were they? Out of curiosity.
Nick from Win and Woo, Nick Winholt.
Wow.
And the funniest thing is, like, Nick and I were so close, and he was like crushing it with Win and Woo during that time frame.
Yeah.
And just last weekend, I played a show in Atlanta with Murph, with It's Murph, and Nick. He does a bunch of different stuff behind the scenes now, and one of those things is he's the tour director for It's Murph. So I got to see Nick, and I got to hang out with him there.
Yeah, he's a killer DJ.
Killer DJ, such a good producer. Both Nick and Austin, great producers. Actually, when I saw Nick, I was like, "Are you still making music?" And he said, "No." And I was like, "Please,
what a shame.
Find time at some point." He's like, "No, I think I'll have another chapter of it at some point."
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so was there anyone else in Chicago like? You know, everyone always references Derek Carter. I saw Derek Carter the first time I went out, and like it changed everything.
Mm-hmm. I got to see the Blessed Madonna play Smart Bar. I got to see Cascade play Smart Bar. I saw Green Velvet so many times. I saw Gene Ferris, you know, a ton. Just a lot of those legends. Derek Carter I got to see as well. But I don't think I realized how lucky I was.
Yes, because Chicago's a casual city.
Yeah.
And these people just like, and now you're part of that crew too, that you guys just walk among us and we don't even like realize. I think, you know, you have this perspective living in LA now. It's different. And I also think the DJ's profile is now being elevated as it becomes more mainstream. But I think it's just Chicago's such a casual, laid-back city that you don't realize that you're among greatness.
Yeah. And also that like casualness, that laid-backness, that like, I feel like I've carried that with me as I've gone. Mm-hmm. Because I never take anything, like I never think too seriously about myself in like a setting where I'm talking to somebody. I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm this person, whatever. It's just like a conversation with a human who likes music.
The Midwestern humbleness.
Yeah.
It's another great feature that we have, I think.
That's funny. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah. It's, you know, like Australians are similar, I think. They're very like laid back, and Sippy is a friend of mine. She told me about this thing called tall poppy syndrome, which is actually kind of has a negative, it's like if you think too highly of yourself or you kind of are proud of yourself. It's not even like if you're proud of yourself, they say, oh, don't be a tall poppy. So I think that they try to be more humble. But I think it's a great trait about Midwesterners. We're open, friendly, and I'm sure you've experienced the opposite, you know, being on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to the music industry, you can fall so quickly from the place you've built yourself up to, or like, you know, you can be humbled so quickly by the industry. And so I think if you approach it with an ego, when you get humbled, people aren't going to want to like help dust you off. You know, they're going to be like, well, that person sucked.
Yeah.
That person was so mean when I talked to them, or they, whatever.
Yeah. And it does, people remember how you made them feel, you know? That's something that like I always try to instill when artists ask me for advice is like, you have the advantage when you're just starting out because now is like, and there's so much education out there now, whereas like before, no one really understood how the music industry worked unless you're already in it. But now there's so many educational resources, and it's like, yeah, you could be the most cracked producer, good DJ, whatever, have a lot of followers, but the relationships are like the number one thing.
Yeah. It's actually becoming, I think, most important, the relationships. Like right next to the aspect of the talent that you have and the drive that you have, I think the relationships are so important. And they've only gotten more important over time.
I was going to ask you that because obviously you're an incredible artist. Where do you feel the balance has been between how far your music has gotten you and the relationships that you've been able to build? Is there one where you'd say, oh, this kind of helped more, or has it been pretty even?
I think the relationship aspect has been the harder part for me in the music industry because I feel like I don't want this to turn into like therapy, but I think it's like interconnected with like how I grew up and feeling like some level of discomfort with like myself or like who I was and knowing that I was gay. And so it's been hard for me to accept myself, which in turn makes me like walk into a room and feel less comfortable talking to people and like having that confidence to be like, no, like we can be cool, we can be friends. Like it's a weird thing that I feel like I'm just going to be always working throughout my life. But, you know, I also think what's funny about artists is that we're a bunch of socially awkward nerds. And so that's another piece of like building relationships. Like sometimes I just like mumble a bunch of stuff and people are probably like, what is she? Is she okay?
No, I'm really glad you're saying this, especially that first part, because, you know, it's basically imposter syndrome where you feel like even though you've had all the success, you know, why do I belong in this room? And so many people can relate to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're speaking directly to me right now as someone who has never DJ'd and has no interest in DJing, but I've loved this music since I was 13. You know, people have said to me, why are you qualified to, you know, give us advice or have a podcast or whatever? And so that really affected me in the beginning of like, oh my God, you're right. Am I, you know, like I'm an imposter. So I think you're speaking to a lot of people when someone who's achieved your level of success can still feel that way sometimes. Have you done anything to like, you know, in therapy or out of there just to try to overcome that?
Honestly, it's like therapy, therapy, and more therapy. And then I think when it comes to like the imposter syndrome stuff with like music production and DJing specifically, I think just continuing to put in the work and grow in both of those areas, it slowly like shaves away that imposter syndrome. But yeah, I think it's also tricky too. Like I think who I am as a person is both an absolute standout strength for me. Like I am a woman, I stand out immediately. I'm also like a gay woman and I wear boys' clothes half the time, you know? So it's like interesting. I think I naturally stand out, which is a good thing. But then also it's that flip side of that is like, but do I fit in? Can I fit in?
Yeah.
And I think it's just all about the mindset you put on that, like the mood you're in or like the frame of mind you're in and the way you think about it.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, this scene was started by the Misfits, right? So like what even is fitting in now? You know, I've like posted about this before too. I was like, I'll never be part of the cool kids club.
Yeah.
And I relate to that a lot because it does feel cliquey, right? There are cliques in dance music. And sometimes I feel like it's all optics because then I meet people who I think are cliquey. I'm like, oh, they're actually so nice.
Yeah.
Like what the story I was making up in my head. Then other times there's definitely cliques, and it's just ironic that we've gotten to that point considering
the roots of this.
Is it social media? I don't know.
Yeah, because it can make everything look cooler and better than it actually is.
Yeah.
And it's the highlight reel, you know?
Yeah.
So you just mentioned like your look, and I know like the crossover of fashion and art and music is super important to you. And I've gotten flack for like talking about how important that is before, mostly by like old heads from the UK,
Sure.
right? They don't care. Like they don't care, which you know what? They don't realize it, but they have a look too that's distinct. Even if it's no effort is still effort in a sense. When did you decide that, like, have you always been into fashion? And when did you decide it was important to your artistry?
Yeah, I've always been into fashion to some extent. And I think, you know, me constantly trying to find myself has been like, it's been through fashion in a way. I remember when I was younger and I wanted to wear like men's clothes, but it was like, I don't know. I feel like it was a time frame where it was like weird if you saw a woman shopping in the men's section.
Yeah.
Now I don't think it's weird.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like those little bits that I was trying to figure myself out were just so deeply connected into fashion. And now as I continue to go, I'm able to, you know, I find new brands that I like, and then I find the story behind some of the brands. And just the fashion piece keeps me discovering who I am.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's another way to flex your creative skills. And it's a different way to use your brain. Like putting together an outfit is an art form that helps like in a roundabout way with other pieces of your artistry.
Yeah.
So I think it's an underrated way to just like keep and it's also, as long as you're not doing it for clout or for social media and you're doing it for you, it's another analog thing you can do with your time that is off the phone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
That's
part.
That's a huge thing for me. Especially like for a vacation or whatever. I'm like, okay, like this is, you know, worth investing time in. So you've made a pivot kind of recently last year to like a grittier sound.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the impetus for that. Is this something that you felt that you needed to do because of something happening in your life or your roots, or what was the decision?
When I learned how to produce, I always gravitated towards quirky sounds, sound design, like quirky synths. And I think my production's always been rooted in like groovy bass lines and drums. And I wrote Check Out in 2020 over Zoom, like during the pandemic. And that record kind of changed things for me in the sense of like all of a sudden I had like all these labels that wanted music from me like the following, like maybe like 8 to 12 months later. And I kept feeling like I was being nudged into the direction of more checkouts. And so I tried to write more, but then it felt weird. I still have some records that people will like hold up on their phone that they want me to play, and I'm like, I hate that song. I hate that song. And it's not because of the actual like components of the song. Like I think it's like a strong, like one in particular is Lightning to Strike. I think it's a solid song, good production, but that was me trying to be something I felt like I was just like trying to go in a direction that maybe didn't feel fully me. And then I signed a record deal, which was not a good fit, to say the least, for legal purposes. And that kind of really, like, that just took me down a path where I lost myself completely. Like, you know, I was in that deal for 2 years, and I feel like there were very few records I made that I felt connected to. And then once I got out of that, I had to hold on releasing for a minute, and I did that. And while I was in that chunk of time, that timeline of not releasing music, I was just thinking about what I wanted to make and the artist I wanted to be. And it kind of just brought me back to, I used to just make fun club music.
Yeah.
And I never used to think about Spotify streaming or anything like that. So I've kind of just gone back to making music that I feel connected to. And I think in my roots, it's always going to be some of that like gritty Chicago house with the really cool grooves and a little bit of quirkiness.
Yeah. Wow. And not to like delve into the legal side of things, but I have had friends go through similar situations where they were locked in to a deal that really just put them in a box, like literally, like couldn't release anything else anywhere, had to, and sometimes those friends have been unfortunately committed to that label, a certain amount of tracks, but didn't read the fine print. And it took them years and years to approve songs to like go out. And so they were just stuck. So that's always something that like when, people are asking me like red flags, whether it's gigs, labels, whatever. So what was like the biggest business lesson that you got out of that experience?
I think as artists, sometimes our mind goes to these places of, well, if I just have this look, if I just have this kind of look, if I just have this size of label putting me on, or if I just have, more marketing dollars for my music, maybe like that will change things, or that will somehow make my career move differently. I don't know. And I think for me, I learned that the most important thing is creative freedom and the ability to move and navigate your career exactly how you want. And so after that, I got out of that deal, I started my own label. And I should say I started the like ideation of it because I wanted it to be something that meant something to me, and I didn't want to just like throw something together and then move forward. So I'm finally in a place where like I'm ready to start releasing on my own label every 4 to 6 weeks, and I have full control. And just like I have so much music that I've never released, and people ask about it, and it's just like it's just not going to come out because the time has passed.
Right, which is always a bummer.
Yeah,
but it is what it is. I'm really glad you said that. The creative freedom part is so important, and I think people do get starry-eyed by like, oh my God, this label wants me or whatever. As I progress in my career, building out different things in media and my conference, I also realized like someone has recommended like, oh, you should take on an investor for this music conference you're building, and I've thought about it, but I'm like, you lose so much, Is there a way to be scrappy and do it and do it differently? And I really think that's something that all new artists should heed and think about.
Yeah.
Because you can do so many things independently now. Your label, it's pronounced Dialogxe?
Dialogxe, yeah.
Dialogxe. So did you ever think in the like beginning of your artist career that would kind of be in your future?
I actually started a label, it was probably like 2017.
Yeah.
And I had a couple releases on it, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I quite honestly was just clueless. So it didn't really go that far. And I didn't even take like the basic trademark steps to it. Yeah. So
it's okay. You're learning. Yeah.
So first one, it didn't go anywhere. But like for Dialogxe, I did all of like the trademarks, and that's actually why I spell it with an X, because for trademark purposes.
It is so expensive and so difficult to get a trademark, as I've recently learned.
I also was able to find that handle on Instagram.
Oh, that's amazing.
So the combination of the trademark being an easy path, and the Instagram handle being available, which is crazy that's part of the factor.
That's the universe all aligning, though, in your favor. Yeah, I just spent $500 to do a trademark search, only a search, only to find out there's probably no shot in hell that I'm going to get it. So I was like, okay.
Just change a letter.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So you're a founder in a space that's like, even though it was created by people in the margins, is no longer dominated by that. Being a woman, being a gay woman, has there ever been, and I'm kind of like asking for myself, has there ever been a time where you've gotten a glimpse of how this industry isn't necessarily built for you, like in small ways? Like what I'm getting at is, I've been accidentally CC'd on emails that I shouldn't have seen.
Oh.
That sort of thing. And how has that just like impacted you?
Yeah. I think I've seen it on the small scales, and I've experienced it on the very like extreme scales,
Yeah.
and I think the impact is on like the very extreme scale is like hard to even put into words sometimes. You're just like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And then, I think weekly you see like the little things. You have like small things pop up or like happen, and it's kind of weird because we had this wave of like women being uplifted.
Yep. Post-COVID.
And I don't really know what happened to that.
Wasn't trendy anymore.
Yeah. And I just think it's so hard for a woman to break into a male circle. And or even get like an invite to be like vetted for it. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
So I've had to stop thinking about my career from the lens of I can't have a career or I can't be successful unless I'm supported by these men in the industry. And I can have my own career. I can build it the long, hard way, like brick by brick. And it's possible. It's like I used to flip from this thought of like, if I just get some of the support from some of these men in the industry, then I'll get the stamp of approval, and then I'll be accepted here and here and here. And then when you start to not like get it, it's like, you're like, why am I trying so hard for this? Like, it's really ultimately, and I say this to fans when I talk to them after shows, I'm thankful for them because they are the ones who decide.
Right.
They buy the ticket, they stream the music, like, and that's a mindset I've had to keep pushing into my head, because if I don't, then I'm going to just be in this like really negative headspace. It'll get me nowhere.
100%. I struggle with how much to talk about it, because the reality is it is a male-dominated space, and I feel like sometimes if you have a loud voice about these issues, you're automatically tuned out. So what is the tightrope between, just like leading with your story or just not letting it define you and pretend? Like sometimes I almost just pretend like I take the delusional route. I'm like, oh, there's no reason they wouldn't talk to me because I'm a woman, even though like deep down, you know. Because I almost feel like that's like a protection. And also it's like an armor so that no one can say, oh, she's playing this card.
Yeah.
When I first started the conference I co-founded with a man, there was a post that went up about it when we announced that only included his name. And I was like, how did my name, you took only his name from a press release and left me completely out of it. Not his fault. He didn't say, but like those are the things where you're just like, if you complain though, then you get called crazy or whatever. So it's like a no-win.
It's almost like you have to grit your teeth and bear it. Yeah. Most of the time. I think like one of my first like memorable experiences with that was early on in my career when I was living in Chicago, I won a DJ contest to play on Groove Cruise. And,
really?
I got to bring somebody, and I brought, there's a Chicago DJ, his name's Jeff, he goes by Zonic. I brought him on the cruise with me, and nobody knew who I was. These were all very established artists, and when we would go to different like we went to the artist meeting and everyone kept going up to him.
Yeah.
He is a DJ, but
he's
they
not
kept
the one.
Yeah, so they kept thinking that he was the one playing. And so, you know, that was like my first big eye-opening, like this is a bit of an uphill battle that you're in being a woman in the industry.
Yeah, I almost wish I could run a computer model of like me, but just as a dude,
Right.
And like, and then like see where my life would be, you know, where it would end up. I mean, I would never be a dude.
Yeah,
That's the thing though. I would never.
Me either.
No hate, no hate, whatever. But no, it's really a crazy tightrope. And some days I'm angry, and some days I'm just like, whatever. I'm gonna prove him wrong. You just sparked a memory though. I went on Groove Cruise 2021, the only Groove Cruise I went on. And I remember your sets were amazing.
Oh, is that the one I was on?
You were on that one.
Nice.
Well, that wasn't the one you won a DJ contest. No, because I was going to say, no, you had
That was probably like 2013 or 14.
Yeah. Wow. I could never do Groove Cruise twice, I don't think. Amazing brand. Maybe I would if I came back and worked it, but that straight out of COVID, like put my body to the ultimate test.
Yeah.
I remember I actually, like, this is so like weird and creepy, but my friend and I, my husband, were sitting there. We didn't get any restaurants. The food was bad that year. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
And I'm eating after like being up for like 22 hours, eating the worst, like a bagel with like freezer burn on it.
Yeah.
And we were up for so long. And I remember my friend goes, guys, J Worra's sitting behind us. And I was just eating this freezer burn bagel, and my brain was just short circuiting.
Did you say hi?
No.
How dare you?
There's no way I could have. It wouldn't have been
Couldn't
real
have formed
words.
a sentence.
No, it's such an amazing time, but like, wow, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Especially, we got lucky. We got a room that was away from the chaos. So our friends were crashing in our room because they're like, dude, like there's just like bass like rattling my door at all hours of the night. What a great time though. There's always great Chicago representation on there too. You, Gene
plays it a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool one. I think Groove Cruise is different because it's like older ravers.
Yes, which is a fantastic time.
Yeah.
So with this like new chapter of your career on the horizon, having the label is important. Is it important for you? Like what's your A&R philosophy? Is it uplifting other, people in marginalized communities? Is it Chicago? Like what's your plan?
Yeah, I think the goal is always to have diversity. And the good thing about where I'm at in my career is that I've met so many people over the last decade that have been doing this. And so, I know a lot of people who are wonderful producers and have great music that would be a great fit. Really, I want to hear music that isn't a copy paste of what is being made and signed right now. I don't, I'm the kind of artist where if everyone's running in one direction to make one thing, I want to run in the complete opposite direction. I just like something about like that feeling of everything sounds the same and everything is oversaturated, and this corner makes me like, I don't know, it's just like the ick. It's weird. So, I want people who are artists. I want people who are exploring their artistry in their own way. I'm not sure when I'll start releasing other artists. Like, I think the rest of this year, I just want to get a bunch of my stuff out and see how that goes. But I'm really excited. It's daunting, but it's exciting.
Yeah. It's always amazing when you're building your own thing because it is your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've realized like over the years, I give the most energy. Like, of course, like, the clients, my marketing agency obviously get my utmost attention, but you like when you're doing something for someone else, you can't ever make them care as much as you're going to care. So like building your own label, like whatever it is, your own IP, there's nothing more rewarding than that.
Yeah. And if I could start over today, the first thing I would do is just start my own label and just start releasing music, not be too hung up on having labels sign my music, just building my own thing and then catching their attention. And then eventually they ask you for demos. And I think when it comes to starting a label, there's so much competition right now with how much music is released. But if you can just pay for like DJ promo, I think you'll be in a good spot. And that's, I don't know, maybe $500-600 a record. So it doesn't have to be like breaking the bank to kind of start building your own platform and getting your music out there. But that would be my first move.
That's great advice. I'm glad you said that because I do feel like a lot of people just sit. I have friends who sit on amazing tracks. They're like, oh, no label. I'm like, dude, just put it out. Like, it's crazy. You just
can't lose.
Yeah.
And if some big label hears it and likes it and it has 50,000 streams on Spotify, whatever, you pull it down and you release it with them.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Like, there's really no downside to that.
Yeah.
So, last question for you. If there is an artist listening right now that's like yourself, as a woman, LGBTQ, what would you tell them? What's your piece of advice for navigating this now, this world where we're post-COVID, post kind of the, equity piece falling by the wayside? What's your advice for them?
My mentor always tells me, like, you being a woman, you being part of the LGBTQ community is like your superpower in this industry because you're already different. You already carry a different approach to everything you do. And I think just leaning into that and not being too worried about fitting in. And it's so much easier said than done because I think everybody just naturally wants to fit in, but just continue believing yourself, ride the roller coaster of ups and downs, and just you're gonna get discouraged. Like the realness of being not a straight white male in the industry is that you're going to go through it. I don't know. You just gotta look. I cry to my girlfriend probably every week about something, and then I wipe my tears and I carry on. You just get it out and you move on, and just as quickly as something can happen, something great can happen.
I love that. It's true. I mean, artists are humans, but you build resilience the longer you do it, and you build up the coping mechanisms to handle it. Everybody, everyone has their own challenges. Everyone has their own story that we don't know about. And like we said, social media is a highlight reel.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it's the reality of it, and you can fight to change it, but also you need to make sure that you're building the personal resilience.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't eat you alive.
Yeah. The amount of times that I've been like, maybe this isn't for me is, I can't even count. But then like something always happens, whether it's like someone reaching out to me, sending a DM saying that something like a record I made or a set I played meant something to them. It's like you got to like hold on to those little boosts of positivity, whether it's like a label you love reaching out for demos or like whatever, like put more weight on those positives, and then all those other negatives, just got to like push them out. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great note to end on. I love having Chicago people on this show. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.